My aunt shook her head. No, I think he meant it literally. That night, we dug where the old oak tree stood and found a locked box. My mother gasped, "Oh God, I thought this was lost forever." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter that said, "To the one who finds this first, I'm sorry you had to learn it this way. My name is Michael Carter, and I was born and raised in a small town in Georgia. After college, I moved to Atlanta, but my roots remained firmly planted in my hometown. My grandfather, Henry Carter, was the patriarch of our family. He was a stern man, a World War II veteran, and a respected figure in our community. He owned a modest farm on the outskirts of town, where he lived until his passing. When Grandpa Henry passed away, the family gathered for his funeral. The service was somber, filled with stories of his life and the legacy he left behind. After the funeral, we convened at his farmhouse for the reading of his will. The lawyer, Mr. Thompson, a longtime family friend, read the document aloud. The will was straightforward. The farm would be divided among his children, with specific bequests to his grandchildren. However, one line stood out. "The truth is buried in the garden." My brother, David, chuckled. "Probably just a metaphor," he said. My Aunt Margaret shook her head. "No, I think he meant it literally." That night, curiosity got the better of us. We gathered shovels and headed to the old oak tree in the garden. After hours of digging, we struck something solid. It was a locked metal box. My mother gasped, "Oh God, I thought this was lost forever." With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside was a letter addressed to the one who finds this first. It read, "I'm sorry you had to learn it this way." The letter was written in my grandfather's handwriting. It detailed a secret he had kept hidden for decades. During the 1950s, he had an affair with a woman named Eleanor, resulting in a child. Fearing the scandal, he arranged for the child to be adopted by a distant relative. He never told anyone, not even his wife. The letter included a photograph of a young woman and a birth certificate. The name on the certificate was Emily Carter. My mother recognized the name. "That's my cousin," she said. "We lost touch years ago." The revelation sent shockwaves through the family. My grandfather had a secret daughter, and she was part of our extended family all along. Determined to find Emily, I began searching through old family records and reaching out to distant relatives. After weeks of investigation, I discovered that she had moved to New York City and was working as a librarian. I contacted her and explained the situation. She was shocked but agreed to meet. We arranged to meet at a cafe in Manhattan. When we met, I showed her the letter and the photograph. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I always felt like something was missing," she said. We spent hours talking, sharing stories about our grandfather and our families. Emily expressed a desire to reconnect with the family. Emily returned to Georgia with me. The family welcomed her with open arms. My mother and Aunt Margaret were especially thrilled to meet their half-sister. We held a family gathering at the farmhouse. Stories were shared, laughter echoed through the halls, and bonds were formed. Emily expressed gratitude for the opportunity to connect with her roots. The discovery of the letter and the reunion with Emily brought closure and healing to our family. My grandfather's secret, once buried, had now brought us closer together. In the months that followed, Emily decided to move back to Georgia. She took a position at the local library and became an active member of the community. Our family grew stronger, united by the truth that had once been hidden. The old oak tree in the garden, once a symbol of secrecy, now stood as a testament to the resilience and unity of our family. We planted a new garden around it, filled with vibrant flowers and memories of the past. As I reflect on the journey, I realize that sometimes the truth, no matter how deeply buried, has the power to heal and bring people together. Years later, as I walk through the garden with my children, I tell them the story of the letter buried beneath the oak tree. I teach them the importance of honesty, family, and the strength that comes from facing the truth. The garden continues to flourish, a living reminder of the secrets unearthed and the bonds that were formed. And as the sun sets behind the old oak tree, I know that my grandfather's legacy lives on in the love and unity of our family. My hands shook as I unfolded the old, yellowed paper. The letter was written in my grandfather's handwriting, tight and slanted, just like I remembered from the notes he used to leave on the fridge. To the one who finds this first, "I'm sorry you had to learn it this way. There are things I never told anyone, things I kept buried, literally." I made mistakes. I hurt people, but I did it for the family, to protect you all. If you found this, then you deserve the truth. I stopped reading, my mouth suddenly dry. Everyone was silent, eyes fixed on me like I held the secret to the universe. Keep reading, my mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. The letter went on. There's another box. A smaller one. It's under the rose bush near the shed. Don't tell anyone else until you open it. What's inside could change how you see me, or each other. I looked around. My brother was frowning, Aunt Margaret had gone pale, and my mom, she looked like she was about to faint. I'll go look, I said. David grabbed my arm. Hang on. Why you? Why not me? I stared at him. Because I found this one. Grandpa said it's for the person who finds it. He let go, but I could feel his eyes burning into my back as I walked toward the shed. It took me almost an hour of digging, my hands blistered and my knees sore, before my shovel hit something. A rusted tin box, no bigger than a shoebox. It was heavy, too heavy for just papers. I didn't open it right away. I hid it in the barn's loft, under the old hay bales. Then I went back inside like nothing happened. The next few days, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Everyone stayed close. Too close. People were suspicious. And I started noticing things, David sneaking out at night, Mom pacing the hallway, and Margaret whispering on the phone in the kitchen. I waited until midnight before I went back to the barn. I brought a flashlight, a bottle of water, and that tight feeling in my chest that said whatever was inside would not be good. I opened the box. There were 3 things inside. A stack of old photos, a worn leather journal, a small velvet bag with a gold locket inside. I flipped through the photos first. Black and white images of people I didn't recognize. Some were dated in the 1940s and 50s. In one photo, Grandpa was standing next to a man who looked just like him. Same face, same eyes, but it wasn't him. It couldn't be. The man had a military badge, but the name tag read, Edward Carver. My heart stopped. Who the hell was Edward Carver? I opened the journal. The first page was written in shaky handwriting. My name is not Henry Carter. It never was. I froze. My grandfather, the man I'd known my whole life, was not who he said he was. I was born Edward Carver in 1925. I changed my name in 1953 after what happened in Louisiana. I didn't have a choice. Page after page detailed a life I'd never heard of. There was talk of a failed bank robbery, a dead man, a buried bag of stolen money. The deeper I read, the more insane it sounded. According to the journal, my grandfather had taken someone else's identity. Henry Carter was a real person. A quiet, lonely man who died during a flood in Baton Rouge. My grandfather assumed his name, moved to Georgia, and started a new life. My hands were shaking again. I had to sit down. The man I thought I knew, who taught me how to ride a bike, who showed me how to plant tomatoes, was a fugitive. I didn't tell anyone what I found. Not yet. I needed time to process it. But David was watching me. You went back out there, didn't you? He said one morning at breakfast. I was checking on the roses. I lied. He didn't believe me. And that's when I realized something. David wanted whatever was in that box. Maybe he knew more than he was letting on. That afternoon, I returned to the barn. The box was gone. Panic exploded in my chest. I ran back to the house. David wasn't there. Neither was his car. I called his phone, no answer. Then I saw the journal on the kitchen table. He left it behind. But the locket and the photos were gone. That night, I showed the journal to my mom. She read it in silence, tears slipping down her cheeks. I knew, she whispered. What? Not all of it. But I knew he changed his name. I found out when I was 16. He swore me to secrecy. Why didn't you ever tell us? Because he was still my dad. And he loved us. I didn't care what he did before. He gave us everything. I felt like the floor had dropped out beneath me. There's something else, she said, voice shaking. Your uncle didn't die in a car crash. That's what we told everyone. But he found out too. And he was going to go to the police. She looked me dead in the eyes. The night I couldn't sleep after that. I drove to David's apartment the next day. He wasn't there, but his roommate let me in. I found the locket and the photos on his nightstand. I opened the locket. Inside was a photo of a woman I didn't recognize and a tiny folded note. If anyone finds this, go to Lake Martin. The truth is buried there too. Lake Martin, in Alabama. That's where my grandfather met my grandmother. That's where he disappeared for 6 months in 1953. That's where the bank robbery happened. That's where the Real Henry Carter died. I took 2 days off work and drove down to Lake Martin, Alabama. I didn't tell anyone, not even Mom. I needed to know what else was buried in my grandfather's past. The note in the locket felt like a clue, something left behind on purpose. I pulled into a small lakeside town called Dadeville, where my grandparents had once owned a cabin. The place was worn down, the paint peeling off like old scabs, but the outline of my childhood memories was still there, fishing off the dock, roasting marshmallows by the fire pit. I started asking around. Most people were too young to remember anything from the 50s, but I found one man, Mr. Harvell, who used to run a gas station there. "You say Henry Carter?" he asked, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. Name don't ring a bell, but there was an Eddie Carver. Real troublemaker. Fella vanished after that bank mess. He stared at me hard. "You related to him?" I didn't answer. He squinted. "You got his eyes." I drove up to what used to be the community office for the cabin rentals. It had been turned into a bait and tackle shop, but the owner let me poke around in the old ledgers. That's when I saw it. Cabin number 12. Rented by Edward Carver from March to September. Next to his name, written in red ink, "Dead." I found cabin 12. It was boarded up, but the back door had a broken latch. Inside, it smelled like mold and wet wood. There were old beer cans in the corner, a rusted stove, and a collapsed couch. But in the floorboards near the fireplace, I noticed a loose plank. Beneath it was a tin can wrapped in plastic. Inside, a map, hand-drawn, with an X marked near the lake's edge. The spot marked on the map was close to a collapsed dock. I dug for hours before my shovel hit metal again. Another box. Same style. Rusted shut. Inside this one? A stack of cash, bills dated back to the early 50s. At least $20,000 worth. Alongside it was a blood-stained jacket and another letter. "To whoever finds this, I'm sorry. This was never supposed to happen." The letter told a darker story. Edward Carver had not just stolen a name. He'd been part of a botched robbery in Montgomery. The man who died? It was his own brother. Accidentally shot when they argued about what to do with the money. But that wasn't the part that made my stomach turn. The letter ended with, "There was one witness. A child. I couldn't risk it. I took him too. Buried near the North Shore. I tried to forget, but I never could. I called the authorities. They excavated the area near the North Shore, and they found him. A small skeleton, wrapped in a blanket. No ID. No record." The news spread fast. The town buzzed with rumors. Local news picked up the story. "Lake Martin yields 70-year-old mystery," the headlines said. My family was in shambles. David drove back from Florida to scream at me in person. Mom stopped returning my calls. Aunt Margaret said I had betrayed everyone. But it wasn't about them. It was about the truth. And it wasn't over yet. As the FBI got involved, they searched the farmhouse and found something we missed. Hidden in the back of Grandpa's old cigar box was a safe deposit key. The number scratched into the side read, "Bank of Tallapoosa, Box 113. I drove out there with 2 agents. Inside the box? 3 passports. All with my grandfather's face, but under different names. A stack of birth certificates. Fake IDs. And a photo of a woman holding a baby. Written on the back, "New Life. 1953. I took one look at the baby and knew. It was me. I confronted my mother. She sat at the kitchen table, pale and shaking. She didn't speak for a full minute. "I didn't give birth to you," she said finally. "Not in the way you think." "What are you saying? You're not entirely my son. You were adopted." Quietly. Off the record. She broke down crying. "That woman in the photo? Her name was Grace. She showed up one night with you wrapped in a blanket. Said your father couldn't take care of you. Said it was too dangerous. She disappeared a week later. Your grandfather raised you as his own. I went along with it. David took a DNA test to prove we were still brothers. We weren't. He was Grandpa's biological grandson. I wasn't. And just like that, the inheritance got complicated. Lawyers started calling. Cousins I hadn't seen in years showed up. Everyone wanted a piece of something they now saw as cursed treasure. But I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to know who I really was. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photograph of Grace, the woman from the baby picture. She was older now, sitting in a wheelchair next to a nurse. The back of the photo said, Mobile, Alabama. Room 216. She's still alive. I drove to Mobile the next morning. I didn't even pack. Just got in the car and went. The nursing home was quiet. Smelled like bleach and old toast. The receptionist led me down a long hall to room 216. And there she was, Grace. Her hair was white, skin pale, eyes cloudy. But when she saw me, something flickered. Recognition, maybe. "You found me," she whispered. I sat beside her. "Are you my mother?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. And no." "What does that mean?" "You were born to someone else. A woman named Lila. She died during childbirth. I raised you for a year. Until Edward came. Said it was too dangerous. Said the people he ran from would hurt you. He begged me to let him take you. Why didn't you come back?" "I tried," she said. "But your grandfather, he threatened me. Said if I ever came near you again, I'd disappear. Like the others." Grace gave me one last thing, a folder. Inside were newspaper clippings about a series of robberies in the 1950s. For suspects. 2 were caught. 1 was killed. The 4th? Never found. Until now. Edward Carver hadn't just changed his name. He'd killed every man who could have identified him. Except one. A man named Lester Holmes. The man whose identity he stole. Grace believed he was still alive, living under a new name in New Orleans. I found him. It took weeks of digging. Old addresses. A fingerprint match through a lawyer friend. Lester Holmes was living as Samuel Darby. Retired. Quiet. No kids. I walked up to his porch in the middle of a humid afternoon. He looked at me like he knew. "You're Edward's boy, aren't you?" "Not really." We sat in silence. "I should have stopped him," he finally said. "But I was scared. And by the time I got the guts, it was too late. He buried too much. People, lies, pasts. You were just a pawn." I handed him the journal. "Then read this." He did. And he cried. Word got out. Newspapers ran the story. Man raised by fugitive exposes 70-year secret. FBI wrapped up the cold cases. My family stopped talking to me. David blocked me on everything. My mother moved out of state. Said she couldn't face anyone anymore. The farm was left to rot. Lawyers split up what was left of the money. None of it felt worth anything now. I kept the journal, the locket, and one of the passports, the one with my grandfather's real name, Edward Carver. I drove back to Lake Martin, alone. I stood by the spot near the North Shore where they found the child's body. I thought about everything Edward took. The lives, the lies, the fear he left behind. I brought gasoline. I burned cabin 12 to the ground. Watched it turn to ash. But it wasn't enough. I returned to our family cemetery. Everyone thought Grandpa was buried under that big marble headstone next to Grandma. But I knew better. I had the records. The autopsy. The box of documents he kept hidden in the barn. He'd faked his death once before. And now I suspected he did it again. So I dug. All night. Until I hit a coffin. I pried it open. It was empty. I found him in Mexico. 2 years later. New name. New wife. Same eyes. He didn't recognize me at first. Until I sat at his bar and said, "The truth was buried in the garden." He went pale. He tried to run. But I was faster. He didn't make it out of the alley. I left the journal on his chest. Let the local police find it. Let the truth follow him into death. I don't sleep much anymore. Sometimes I see him in my dreams. Sometimes I hear that line, "The truth is buried in the garden," and I wake up gasping. I lost everything trying to chase the truth. And maybe that was the price. But someone had to pay. And I made sure it wasn't just me.